boys and girls, I'm going to read to you Chapter 6, Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. grew up in Atlanta, Georgia in the 1930s as a boy growing up in the South. He too experienced unfair treatment because of the color of his skin. He experienced segregation or being forced to use separate water fountains and restrooms. Like his father, Martin became a church minister. He is called Dr. King because he earned a special degree called a doctorate. Martin wanted to end the unfair treatment of people of color and to replace it with legal equality. Martin Luther King Jr. thought about Rosa Parks. The bus boycott had worked and unfair laws were changed. He had helped with that. He had also read about another leader like himself, a man who fought injustice without using violence. That man was Mahatma Gandhi, who had lived in South Africa and India. Martin read the books of Gandhi, the books that Gandhi wrote, and learned about the movements he had led. Gandhi said never to use violence when you are fighting for what is right. This reminded Martin of the Bible lesson that teaches people to walk away if someone hits them instead of hitting them back. Martin agreed to be the leader of the civil rights movement. And even though he knew he was putting himself and his family in danger, there were many people who did not like the changes he and others wanted. Despite the dangers, Martin said that those involved in the civil rights movement must remain peaceful. He believed that a nonviolent movement that protested inequality with thoughtful words and dramatic actions, no fists and weapons, would succeed. So here are some people here. It says, "Stop school segregation now." And the little kid has the same sign, and all that means is they wanted to stop the division between whites and blacks, having a white school and then a colored school. And when I say colored, that just means Asian, black, and Mexican. Martin and other ministers set about bringing together members of African American churches throughout the South. They set out to register African Americans in the South to vote. By voting, they would help bring about change. So there they are, registering to vote. In his first speech to the leaders of African American churches in the South, Martin said, "We have no alternative but to protest. For many years, we have shown an amazing patience. We have sometimes given our white brothers the feelings that we liked the way we were being treated. But we come here tonight to be saved from that patience that makes us patient with anything less than freedom and justice." And so it began. African Americans living in southern states began to hold sit-ins at lunch counters that would not serve them. Sit-ins were nonviolent. Protests that involved people sitting down in places where they were often not allowed. "We shall overcome," says one of their signs. People rode buses from state to state and protested in places that allowed segregation. They marched in the streets. Many people were arrested for taking part in these peaceful protests. Martin was arrested many times. Then, in 1963, Martin led a march on Washington, D.C. Thousands of people came to Washington to hear people speak in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Martin gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. In this speech, he said he hoped for a day when people would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. The following year, Martin was given one of the highest awards anyone can achieve, the Nobel Peace Prize. And here's the Lincoln Memorial. Here, all these little specks are people that came to support him and support civil rights. Because of Martin and many others like him, a law was passed in 1964 called Civil Rights Acts, which put an end to segregation. The following year, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, which guarantees the right to vote. Tragically, in 1968, Martin was killed by a gunman in Memphis, Tennessee. 20 years after his death, the U.S. Congress made the third Monday in January a holiday in his honor. The young boy who experienced discrimination grew up to become a national hero. And there you have it, another brave soul, a person that saw what was right and what was wrong and saw people suffering and not treated fairly. And he didn't stand back. Instead, he stood forward with peace and he protested and used his words and not his fist. And we are very appreciative to Martin Luther King because of his bravery and courage. We have the Civil Rights Act that all people should be treated equally, no matter what difference you have. Okay, well there you go. Have fun and do your web. Bye-bye.